Hello and welcome to the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. I'm your host, Jeff Harvey, Registered Migration Agent with Down Under Visa, the premier Australian migration agent in Manila, Philippines, specialising in visas for Australian Filipino couples. We hope you enjoy this podcast and hope it proves useful to you. Please feel free to share this with your partner and with any of your interested friends. Let's get started. Overseas Filipino workers and Australian visas. Now, overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, are those wonderful human beings who leave their homes and families and work in sometimes awful places in some strange countries in order to provide a better life for their families than what their own lives have been. And that means they miss out on a life with their families, often husbands or wives and kids as well, and most of them are the salt of the earth, those who lay down their lives for others, as it were. OFWs, Overseas Filipino Workers. OFWs work in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, Malaysia and Brunei. They work in the Middle East, in Europe, for example Spain. They work in UAE, Dubai, and those various countries in the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and even Saudi Arabia. Now, they invariably do the jobs that the locals don't want to do, and a lot are domestic helpers, or maids, if you like using that word. Now, they're generally treated with little respect, and are paid much less than local employees would be paid. However, the salaries are higher than they would be paid in the Philippines for doing similar work, hence the reason for the sacrifice in the first place. Now, these jobs are highly competitive. Now, it can take time and money to get overseas placements. In other words, they could have been to several agencies and had to wait for years to get the job that they now have. And it takes dedication and a very thick skin to hold on to these jobs and not to be fired and sent back. So OFWs are usually reluctant to let these jobs go. And this is a ticket out of poverty for many people, and the idea of just tossing such an opportunity away, it's fairly unappealing. Now, OFWs and Australian partner visas. Are there issues for overseas Filipino workers when it comes to Australian partner visas? In most cases, yes. Now, residency. Now, when you apply for an Australian visa, the application is processed at the overseas port, which are their embassies or consulates, different names, different countries. I'm not quite sure of the reasoning behind that. But it's processed in that overseas port that services that particular country. So if an applicant lives and works, say, in Hong Kong, that visa application will be processed in Hong Kong and not in Manila. Now, if they're in Japan, for some reason the Australian Embassy in Korea takes care of Korean applications as well as applications from Japan. And Dubai takes care of a number of countries in that region. So why is this an issue? Local staff. Local staff, did you say? Yes, local staff, I did say. Now, here we go. White people did not invent racism. It's alive and well throughout the world. Australian embassies and consulates employ local staff in decision-making positions. Why do they do this? I wish I knew. Now, they will have Australians working there, don't get me wrong, but for some strange reason they will employ local staff in these decision-making positions. Now, what it means is that if your Filipino lady applies for her visa in Hong Kong, it will most likely be a local staff member who makes decisions as to her visa application and may even be the one who refuses it. Now, countries which employ maids, again, hate that word, for low pay, there are often these countries which have contempt for those that they consider lowly. Hong Kong is certainly like that. We do these continued professional development studies every year, and I went to a seminar in Hong Kong once, and it was me, and there were a whole lot of registered migration agents from Hong Kong and also from China who were there, and I remember discussing what I did with one of these agents, and I said, I said, yes, I do partner visas for those Australians who fall madly in love with Filipinas and marry them and want to bring them to Australia. And his response was, "Oh, that's a really good idea. They're a wife and they're good at cleaning the house." Well, I nearly hit him. I was so I just got up and walked away. I thought, I can't talk to somebody who's like that. But in his view, somebody from the Philippines was a maid, and her reason for being on this earth was to clean up after him and his lot. Disgraceful. But anyway, that's how people can be. So anyway, what you're talking about there is, if a visa is processed in Hong Kong, somebody who processes it, there's a very good chance they think like that. So what it means is that they will get a less than sympathetic hearing in some countries, and this could affect the overall outcome. Now, some are okay, but some are real shockers. Now, I won't give details here because we do still have to deal with them, as you can understand. Now, Manila, full of Filipinos and Filipinas, so that means for a Filipino applicant, they're good and they're fairly kind. So I always tell people they get a much fairer hearing if they can apply in their own country. Whereas honestly, we do find that certain countries, which I will not list here, some are fine, but some are, some can be quite unfair, I would say. Again, won't list them here for obvious reasons. Other issue is employers not cooperative or sympathetic. My wife Meda lived and worked in Hong Kong as an OFW many years ago when we applied. Now, we had to hide the fact that I even existed from her employers, and certainly we had to hide the fact that she was applying for her Prospective Marriage Visa. Now, they would have fired her immediately had they known. It took a fair bit of creativity to get everything done. Actually, surprisingly, at the time, the staff were quite sympathetic, and they were quite cooperative with us. And I actually had a case officer I could communicate with, but take note, that was a lot of years ago. Don't expect that sort of thing. Now, other countries have consulates and embassies that are only open during the week, whereas the OFW probably only gets Sunday off. Hong Kong different. The embassy there, the Philippines embassy there, is actually open on Sundays, and that's a very busy day for them for obvious reasons. But places like Singapore, for example, no, it's embassies closed on the weekend. They have Sunday off. They can't get there. In some countries, particularly countries in the Middle East, they will take the passports away from OFWs, and what that means is it could be really hard work to organise documents as part of a partner visa application, and you may risk the wrath of annoyed employers if they found out. As I said, they would have, admit she knows absolutely. They would have said, well, now you're going, well then that means we're going to fire you. So they would have done so. Other big issue here, children in the Philippines. this is main one is if your lady is an overseas Filipino worker who has children, and if you are intending to include them as secondary applicants to a partner visa, those kids need to be in the same country as mum when the visa application is lodged. So if you apply overseas, it means you will be away from them for a few years until you can get to apply for a child visa for them. Because like if she's working in Singapore or something like that, well, she can't bring her kids there. It's as simple as that. She can't, bring her kids along and include them in the visa. They're simply not going to be included, and that's all there is about it. And what that means is that, the only option left is that she comes separately, and a few years later her kids arrive with a dependent child visa or a child visa. So, and the other thing is that if it means that she will go from there straight to Australia. She won't get to spend any time with the kids. She won't get to spend any valuable quality time with her family either. Which could be, I don't know. I just tend to think it's a bit of if somebody's heading to Australia and they're waiting for a visa to be granted, wouldn't it be nice if she got a bit of a break from work and got to spend time with the kids, got to spend time with her parents and siblings and what have you, because that way, she probably won't see them for a few years once she goes to Australia. So it's certainly something worth thinking about. Other thing, OFWs and work ethic. As explained before, OFW jobs could have taken years of struggle to obtain in the first place, and they've usually taken years of hard work, sacrifice and loneliness in order to keep those jobs. And they do all of this in order to support children, parents, siblings back in the Philippines. They've made a commitment and they've sacrificed a great deal in order to do what they're doing. So it's a hard thing for them to let go of. Now, I had written, if you're looking at our blog page, you might go back and search an article I wrote in 2015 entitled "The Princess and the Worker." If you haven't read it, please click on the link if you're looking at this on the blog page. Otherwise, have a search and have a read, because it's something worthwhile to take in. You'll find that most of the overseas Filipino workers are workers and not princesses. So what this means is that they're generally scared that if the visa isn't granted and they've left their employment, they'll never get that opportunity again. It's a very real fear. They're scared if they leave the job without seeing out the contract, which may be for another year or more, that they will be banned or blacklisted from trying again. I'm not sure of the ins and outs of that, but it is certainly a concern which you find the ladies will have. And also they hate the idea of not earning an income. Many of them have been doing this for years, and it's like that's how they look upon themselves. It's part of who they are. The idea of not earning an income. Again, many of them have been doing it for years, not accustomed to the idea of not working or not accepting money, or of accepting money from someone else, even a new husband. Now, I married a worker. No question about it. Now, she used to sell food that her mum cooked in the street before school when she was 7 years old. She washed clothes for the neighbours all throughout her school years to make money. And she worked in Taiwan and been in Hong Kong both times as an OFW. She was in Hong Kong for 4.5 years. When she came to Australia, she was in Taiwan for several years prior. And did she like the idea of not working? Not one little bit. Now I gave her an ATM card and said, "There's the ATM, use it." But she wouldn't. And she used to say to me when we were first married, she'd say, no, but that's your money. And I had a job and a half trying to say, no, it's our money. Please stop saying your money. That was a bit hard for me to take, but it was hard for her to accept that she wasn't going to work, and she didn't even want to send money back for her daughter because she was thinking at the time that was my money and she couldn't bring herself to do it. Fortunately now she's busy in our business and making a large and ungainly household function, or she'd be still off selling lumpia or something. Goodness me, when we were in Australia, look, she ended up getting a job in a Chinese restaurant as a kitchen hand in the evenings, and goodness me, I think they were paying her about $7 an hour or something ridiculous. And I was, we goodness me, we lived about 30 minutes out of town at the time, and I'd have to drive her in, drop her off, have to go back. And she'd call me and say, look, I'm going to be finishing in about 30 minutes, come in to pick me up. And I'd go in there and I'd park outside, and sometimes, it was still busy. She'd work for another hour and a half with me sleeping in the car outside. Oh my goodness. But it was just, we probably wasted as much on fuel as she was earning in order to do those things with, 2 hours of driving on top of it. But it was just hard for her not to go to work, and couldn't accept that, doing domestic tasks was it was in any way equivalent. So you need to be aware of that sort of thing. So what I'm trying to say here anyway is to you need to understand her and realise you're saying quit the job and I'll support you. For a worker, someone who's not used to that, it's not going to be so easy for her to accept. For a princess, oh goodness, absolutely, they're delighted that you support them. You have no doubt if you've married one of them, you've been supporting her in the Philippines and supporting, giving her a pretty damn good life. But a worker won't like that one bit. Moving to Australia, being a wife and not working is a bold step for her, very hard one for her. Again, you need to be understanding of this. But look, both of you, Australian sponsor and overseas Filipino worker visa applicant, if you are committed to each other, better that you do leave the job and return to the Philippines. That will always be my advice, because your priority really should be that visa, so you can be together. We can process the partner visa while you are here in the Philippines. No jobs or employers to get in the way. You can spend time with your family and your kids before you leave, and you can get stuck into getting everything that's needed for the visa, and you will get a sympathetic hearing from the Filipinos who handle your visa application at the Australian Embassy in Manila. We've been dealing with them for years, and I know, despite people grizzling when they don't get a tourist visa granted, that they're a pretty fair lot. I couldn't fault them. I've never found anything absurd or unreasonable in the way they handle things, and a pretty impressive lot. And again, they are Filipinos, so is your lady. It's the place to have the visa application granted. So much better all round. Okay, good luck to you all in your visa applications. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you found this useful. Australian visas from the Philippines are not easy, and the outcome matters, as you well know. Please feel free to contact us anytime if you need some further help. And we look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye-bye.